So, at this point, we will now be hearing the global perspective on quantum technology. Let us all welcome the head of the Emerging Digital Technologies Unit at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, within its Science, Technology, and Innovation Directorate. A warm round of applause to Ms. Elizabeth Thomas-Raynaud.
Thank you. All good. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much to our very kind and generous hosts for having me here today. It is a privilege, and I very much appreciate getting to hear about how things are developing in the Philippines. It's an excellent looking program. I'm excited to participate and to learn a lot from all of you during these sessions ahead. So as our kind animators mentioned, my name is Elizabeth Thomas-Raynaud, and I work for the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, or the OECD. And for those of you who aren't very familiar with the organization, I'll just give you a bit of a top-level introduction. It was created in the post-war era in Europe with the Allies and a few other countries interested in the development and economic integration to rebuild the partnerships and advancement of that integration. Today, the OECD is a much bigger organization. There are 38 members and accession countries still seeking to join the OECD, such as countries like Peru, Argentina, Indonesia, and Thailand. So it's an expanding organization with shared democratic values focus. And that focus is sort of what brings the fabric, the integration, the cooperation, and development behind those values together is part of what makes the OECD motivated today to work on its mission, and the mission being, in a nutshell, to create better policies for better lives. So governments come work with us to try and share what they're doing, learn from each other, identify where common vision can be had. So that's what I'm going to talk about today in terms of how it relates to technology more broadly, and then specifically quantum. So one of the ways the OECD is working to do this, not just within its own membership, but also with stakeholders and partner countries beyond, is through the Global Forum on Technology. And we call this the GF Tech. So if you hear me use the acronym, that's what I'm referring to. This is an initiative that was launched by the Digital Ministers meeting at the end of 2022. And really with an impetus to support a better understanding and anticipation of rapid developments in technology. The challenge for governments was recognize that technology is advancing rapidly, and we can harness this transformation to deliver positive change, but it's essential that we get ahead of the potential and long-term risks associated with some of those technologies. So as I mentioned, it's a mission-based initiative. The pursuit of human-centric technology development and use is at its core, in line with those shared democratic values. So it's the members, stakeholders, and other governments and actors working together. And so in pursuing that mission, the forum provides a venue for regular, in-depth, multi-stakeholder dialogue to get ahead of those long-term opportunities and risks. So if you imagine what you're doing here domestically, with an international audience. This is very similar to what we're pursuing. And again, part of the reason we're doing this larger dialogue is to help identify policy tools and levers that would be needed to ensure these developments foster trust that are consistent with those values, and making sure that there's a diversity of voices, the right expertise allows for that informed evolution, as well as the early level buy-in of the directions that get taken. So at the launch of the Global Forum, I'll share with you a bit about that inauguration event, but we are facilitating these dialogues, and we've looked at first 3 initial technology areas. So the members identified synthetic biology, quantum technologies, and immersive technologies as areas for this focus area track of the forum. There's also a horizon scanning track of the forum that I'll talk about a little bit more in a moment. When we are looking at the technologies, as I mentioned, the values are underpinning it. So what are we looking at? What are the cross-cutting lenses that we look at? So we're looking at what is going to be the impact of these technologies on sustainable development, and how will they support the goals of resilient societies? How can we ensure that whether an academic, an industry leader, or a government agency, we're all investing in the technologies, playing a role in responsible values-based orientations? And how can we also make sure that the technology isn't evolving in a way that's going to deepen existing divides? How can we pay attention to making sure that access across the spectrum of communities and people within communities can be attended to as these technologies are both developed and then implemented? So I mentioned events. The first event that we did was an event in Paris at a minister level meeting of the council. It was our inaugural. We launched with discussions on the horizon scan, on the cross-cutting themes that I mentioned. So we had a really nice breakout session of discussions on those. We also did some deep dives. And at the same time, we involved the high-level policymakers. And I'll explain the value of the distinct communities. For us, the policymakers help us set that vision and the ambitions. They help put the political emphasis and resources at play. But then the experts and the working level officials can go into deeper dialogues on the potential benefits and risks, analyze those surface insights, and help also as we try to collect the data and develop the evidence base, which is an important part of our project. We also have technology-focused discussions. So our first, we had the inaugural event, we had a first quantum event in the same year, 23. Then we also had a synthetic biology event in 24. And at the later part of 24, we did a horizon scanning event. That means that we brought technologists and experts from a range of areas. We looked at megatrends and we looked at high impact areas. This event was called The Human Future, What's on the Horizon. So here we looked at health in the human body. What are the technologies that are most likely to impact that? And which ones should we consider at what level of technology readiness and concern, which are going to influence learning and cognition. And then we also had those that are contributing to digitally enabled spaces. So, oops. So in the forum, we also work with these specific groups, our sort of stable community of experts that are working in what we call expert focus groups on the particular technology areas. Our government delegations recommend experts from their country in those areas. And then we've supported that group to make sure that we have a range of perspectives from the stakeholders as well as from the regions. So culminating the first year of those focus groups, we had 3 primers, policy primers that were developed. And these create kind of a benchmark starting place. So they help scope out where the technology is, also where those risks and benefits might be, prioritizing them a little bit, looking at some of the policy options and challenges at an initial level. And then our governments looked at the reports and agreed to declassify them so that they could be in the public domain and start to create a bit of a common and shared understanding. And just to give you a sense, in the quantum area, in the first 2 months of publication in at the beginning of February, there were 10,000 downloads of the primer. There was a strong appetite, and we've had 5,000 more since. So there's a strong appetite for understanding and baseline, and I think I heard Dr. Parangit mention this. I think it's like a quantum literacy that people are seeking out from a range of domains. So let's dig deep into what we're doing on quantum and how the international community of governments particularly, but also stakeholders, are looking at this question. So as I mentioned in our in the primer, we looked at and tried to surface what could happen, what could be those potential opportunities once quantum technologies are sufficiently mature. And if you want to understand why governments are pursuing this, there are lots of reasons, and we'll talk about a range of them. But the ambitions and the vision of those ambitions is really in these benefits. So in the area of medical and healthcare, there's an ambition that quantum sensors could promise medical imaging that might help detect tumors and track drug effects at a cellular level, enabling earlier and more accurate diagnosis. So using computing to accelerate DNA sequencing, drug discovery, while at the same time supporting more personalized or more accurate patient outcome predictions. In material sciences, the ambitions could include quantum sensors that would reveal microscopic defects or thermal stresses in materials before those cracks appear, boosting safety, cutting inspection time in aerospace, automotive, and electronics. Quantum computers are also sought to help model novel alloys and superconductors, as some of you are well aware here, guiding the development of stronger, lighter, and more efficiently manufactured materials. For energy and extractive industries, sensors could help locate geological resources and identify equipment faults early, reducing exploration costs, production downtime, environmental risks. Simulation and optimization through quantum techniques may help deliver carbon capture processes and energy grid operations. These are strong aspirations. There are aspirations also in the area of chemistry, finance, transportation and logistics, as well as communications. And communications, we'll talk more about the threats, but some of the opportunities are explored through the prospect of quantum key distribution to secure data links for financial, healthcare, and critical infrastructure applications. There's also the hope that food security could be boosted through precision agriculture. We heard that aspiration expressed earlier. The improved access to clean water through subterranean monitoring and next generation purification materials, as well as an integration of quantum technologies with classical computing and networks in the interim pursued to augment these benefits. In terms of risks, we all know that a big driver for people initially looking at quantum technologies in the digital economy is the cryptographic threat, the possibility that a quantum computer operating at a certain degree will break all of our current cryptographic standards. And if you think about how much we've achieved in terms of digital transformation, which is a great success, there is also a significant vulnerability there. And this is an important area of education and understanding that needs to happen across the ecosystem, not just in the quantum research and development area. The other area, of course, is with sensing, you have a degree of privacy risk that is unprecedented and in the hands of bad actors and actors not operating from a values-based, human-centric orientation, respecting the framework of the human rights. This really is an important risk to humans and our understanding of acceptable exposure. There is, of course, the dual use nature of quantum technologies, their application in intelligence gathering, advanced weapon development, and cryptanalysis. And that has raised important national security concerns, and it's driving some of the behaviors I'll be speaking about shortly. And these are surfacing in our discussions with the experts, is there are some of the protective responses of governments that are inciting policies or approaches, export controls, with sort of a blanket that don't grasp some of the nuance that the research community and others might require and that might not be needed. So deeper study, deeper understanding, multi-stakeholder engagement in those discussions is part of the exercise and the value of such an exercise. I think somebody already mentioned this earlier, but it needs to be stated that the COVID-19 pandemic reshaped the context for technology strategy, and particularly for something like quantum strategy development, because it does heighten the concerns around technological sovereignty and supply chain vulnerabilities. We heard that nobody can go it alone, and I'll talk more about that in a moment, but this era of strategic competition, particularly in critical technology areas driven by these concerns and geopolitical tensions, is an area which is driving both the challenge and the need for international cooperation. So again, I'm really delighted that the Philippines has the vision to participate and integrate in those discussions at this juncture. So one of the anxieties, of course, for governments in the area is strategic surprise. So where one country might gain a substantial advantage over its competitors because of a breakthrough or advances. And we've heard, thanks to Andre's presentation, you know, how focused some governments are and how significant those investments that are being made with that motive in mind. And as I alluded to before, there are some of those unintended consequences. So some policies can slow down progress in pursuing those benefits that we've talked about, limiting potential socioeconomic opportunities, and also siloing some of the approaches and reducing the efficiency of how we can proceed. And this is why in the work of the focus group and in the primer itself, experts said to us and governments participating said the OECD could play an important role in facilitating discussion on scoping principles and the fundamental underpinnings of policy approaches that would head in the direction of responsible development and use of quantum technologies. And so that's a process that we've started, we're underway. Those of you in the room that work with artificial intelligence will be familiar that in 2019, OECD put out the first intergovernmental agreement on the responsible use and development of artificial intelligence with the OECD AI principles that has been taken up by 47 country adherences. It's been recognized by the G20 and also was the foundation for the Global Partnership on AI and its pathway to cooperation. So it's been a really important step in the discussion, and that's a piece that we've started. And I really commend the governments for their vision on leveraging the focus area, the experts that we have involved to do that initial scoping so that it's grounded not just in aspiration, but in understanding of the technology, of where it's at, of where it needs to go, and how and in this draft that we're working on, we're looking at principles, but also recommendations. And while it will be governments that adopt this legal instrument, it's a voluntary legal instrument, but it has the weight of a legal agreement. The actors involved are also implicated in this. So there are actions and contributions that can be made by the wider community of stakeholders. So let's move on to the national strategies and policies picture. And I really appreciate coming after Andre, who painted out a lot of the big picture. And I'll just let you know that we are working on some analytical work at the moment at the OECD, where we have the national strategies and the information collected by us and provided by governments, and also then explored by the focus group. We have a database of policies as well that are used to implement those national strategies. And that work, I hope, will be out and public later this year, and we'll put the database up for everyone to consult and work with and use to inspire their own examples. But the UK came out early. They did like the Philippines. They first had a roadmap and then they iterated it towards a strategy. This is really a recognition of the strategic importance, and that the number of countries that have been doing that since that time has increased. There are 21 countries with dedicated strategies. 16 of them are OECD member countries. The most recent launches were Spain. We had an event with the Philippines representation there, and also Finland, which have launched their strategies this April. And these are mission-oriented innovation policies. And they come in a variety of configurations that I don't have enough time to elaborate on here. But I do want to point out that there are also different levels of government that are driving them. So in the US, in France, and Japan, you have the highest executive level oversight of the strategies. In other governments, you have anywhere across the spectrum of science, technology, ministry towards innovation ministry, and duality of ministries supporting that as the recognition will be for the evolution of the policies from research towards commercialization. So on that note, there are, in our analysis, 5 main instruments of policy that are being used in these strategies. They're meant to form sort of the backbone of how the strategies can be implemented. Governments are allocating institutional funding. They're awarding project grants to universities and research centers, often in partnership with business. They're hosting dedicated basic and applied research programs in quantum technologies. The institutional funding is also being used to maintain research and technology infrastructures, such as test beds, quantum computing clouds, to facilitate rapid prototyping and application testing. Public research organizations are often also supporting skills and talent development. We saw a great slide earlier about the desire and impetus for that as part of tertiary education programs and also through workforce upskilling initiatives. In addition to public research funding, there's financial support for private sector to incentivize firms' investments in the commercialization of quantum technologies. There are grants for businesses, R&D and innovation fund, industry-led projects, partnerships to demonstrate commercial viability, and to cultivate demand for quantum technology products and services. The public procurement aspect supports investment in research and development. It's an area where governments can embed values in the orientation and contribute to the advancement of technology readiness levels, helping businesses that develop innovative solutions to later sell to other ecosystem actors. A notable example is that several quantum computers and networks are being commissioned by governments to make them available for research and industry actors. And then, of course, equity financing. And I know we're going to hear from a pro on this one, but that impetus is really to support the quantum startups and young, small and medium-sized companies, an important part of ecosystem development. So we do have a number of policy work areas that we are contributing to at the OECD. This is a list of them. I want to highlight that the specializations and vulnerabilities in supply chains, the skills and talent development approaches for quantum technology, and the metrics to benchmark quantum technological capabilities were all items that were prioritized highly in the focus area expert discussions and put on the list of to-dos for the organization and its partners in the next stages. So some of those are in progress and some of those are on our to-do list. And I will note, I was very interested listening to Andre and the breakdown of the quantum technological capabilities. It's one of the frustrations we've heard is there's no method to measure, apples to oranges, and even with the supply chains, we've done a lot of work at the OECD on semiconductors. We have a lot of great global value chain data that we can use for that in quantum. Of course, it doesn't exist yet. So this is quite a big challenge. And I think you're going to hear more about different people doing pieces of this. And I just want to reiterate that it's great when we meet and we get together and we can look at how we cooperate, how we each form a piece of the puzzle to advance this together. When we had the opportunity recently to have our Global Forum on Technology event in Madrid at the launch of the national strategy, we talked about these topics here. We had Dr. Parangi with us. You'll actually see him up on the screen, talking to us a little bit about the Philippines' perspective on some of these issues. At the end of that discussion, we were able to highlight a few things. And one was that everyone agreed you need a whole of government approach, that countries are going to face obstacles across those issues, be it skills, infrastructure, access to finance, and that government efforts need to engage the private sector to bridge the gap between research and innovation. And we really, just in sidebar conversations already this week, we've really heard about how fundamental that is. And then inclusive access. And this is a challenge. This is something that we aren't even I would say, at the early stages of fully understanding how we're going to do this. And access might be global, but it might also be community-based access. And when we talked about skills, we talked about the importance of, you see all those job areas that will be needed across the quantum technical side, but there's actually going to be a lot of quantum literacy that's going to be needed. And the multidisciplinary areas of skills are in hot competition with other technology areas. So it's not just AI that's stealing the VC finance from other areas. It's also potentially orienting and focusing talent that would otherwise be missed. So this is a group project for us all. And international cooperation is a fundamental one that surfaced. The fact that there isn't a country that can host supply chains in isolation, that this trust building exercise of working together to identify partnerships, to allow for common technology understanding, to mitigate sensitivities and vulnerabilities that will otherwise block the building out of a global quantum economy. And also that we need some of those, we need both. We need the experts, and we also need the high level exchanges to help break through some of the political log jams and to help promote and encourage robust supply chains and interoperability. And of course, it's the International Year of Quantum, so it's a very timely moment to have this discussion. And again, I really applaud your efforts here in the Philippines to convene this kind of a discussion. With the OECD, we're also working, we've had a recent event in Korea on anticipating the embedding of quantum into sectors. This is our Science, Technology, and Innovation committee that's held a one-day interactive workshop on this topic, and we'll be working on some forward-looking technology assessment on quantum, a report they'll be putting out. I also wanted to flag that our colleagues on AI, I mentioned the principles before, they're ahead of us on the trajectory they've been since they did their principles. They've been looking at a lot of different policies and tools that can help people implement and pursue the path to the technological development that will lead to alignment with those principles. And they have something called the AI Policy Toolkit, and a joint workshop with ASEAN is taking place in Thailand, thanks to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan and the Foreign Ministry of Thailand, with a regional emphasis on Southeast Asia. So even if the OECD is headquartered in Paris, we are working a lot with friends in different places. And that's my last slide, is we want to continue our conversation through the Global Forum. We've been able to engage with 38 countries beyond the OECD membership, alongside them with other stakeholders. Some of these are all governments that have engaged, but we have a lot of nationals in our expert group from a variety of countries. On the right side, please take note of the links and feel free to follow us on LinkedIn or check out our resources on the website. There's a lot there. That's you're who we're doing this for. So let's keep working together to pathfind this route to cooperation and well evidence-based policy choices. So let me know if you want to know more, and thank you very much for having me.